How's it going, YouTube? It's Northern 96 back after a long break with another video for you guys. So today I'm just going to answer some questions I got on the channel in the comments on my first video about well, all kinds of stuff. I had questions about the battery, questions about the roof, how I got it off. So yeah, I'm going to try and answer a few of those for you guys today here. So first off, I'll cover how I get it off. As you can see, there's these big 4x4s on each corner of the camper, and they're basically just lag bolted in with 6-inch lag bolts. And the way I got it off the truck and onto the 4x4s was I basically jacked the truck up so that the camper was higher than it would be normally. Then I put the 4x4s on, and then I dropped the truck off the jacks, and then it was basically just floating there. So I drove out, and that's all there was to it. The next question I got was what the roof was made out of, and it's actually just a heavy-duty tarp. I got it from Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that, and yeah, it's held up fairly well. I did replace it once in the summer just because I had walked on it a lot. I was doing a lot of work on the house, on the side and stuff, so I was using it actually as a piece of scaffolding, so it got quite ripped up. I put on a new one, and it's been good ever since then. I think that was back in, I want to say July or August of this past year of 2020. It's January 3rd of 2021 now. So yeah, that would have been about 5 or 6 months ago then now. So yeah, it's held up good, and hopefully next year I'll get a rubberized roof just so it's a little more durable. So next up's the truck. It's a 2002 Dodge Ram 1500. It's got the 5.9 liter motor in it, and it's currently got 300,000, just over 300,000 kilometers on it. I put about 13,000 on the camper with it, and it held up pretty good. The only issue I ran into was one blowout, and that was because the tires on the back weren't rated for the weight. So I upgraded those and haven't had any issues since. As far as other mods I've done on the truck, I do have Timbrins. So if I get in here, you look there, those are the Timbrins. So they're basically just a suspension mod. They replace the OEM bump stops, and they work really, really well. I'm glad I got those because that would have been too heavy with the stock bump stops. Alright, so back to the camper here. So the next thing I wanted to answer was what it's actually made out of. Now, as you can see, all the trim here, this is just kind of something to cover it. But underneath here is OSB. That's what the main unit's made out of, is OSB painted with a latex-based paint, just very heavily, so it kind of coats it and keeps it weatherproofed. You can tell it's getting a little bit damaged right here from the snow dripping off at one spot, but I'll just probably cut that out next year and replace it, and then try and find a more permanent solution. I might run that rubber roofing down over the sides. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, as far as a frame, it's using 2x4s and 2x2s, so try to keep the framing as light as possible. The only 2x4s I really used were for the long stretches from here all the way to the back, on the top and right here. And then the rest on the inside is just thinner OSB. I think this is just under 1/2 inch, the outside stuff. Yeah, about 1/2 inch, and the inside's a little thinner, so try and keep the weight down again there. Alright, so it's a few days later now, after I recorded that last video there, and I actually got the camper back on the truck. I went for a one-night camping expedition in the snow, just to test it out in the cold, just to see how it'd do, and it did quite well. I did have the space heater going, so we had electrical hookup, so it made it a little bit easier, but eventually I'd like to either get a generator that can run that space heater, or potentially just get a diesel heater. We'll check on the cost and see what it looks like. I think they're only a couple $100 Canadian, so that's not too bad. I may look into one. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more details on the electrical system and a few other things inside here that I didn't cover in the first video. So first off, I'll try and cover my electrical here a little bit. I'll start down here at the batteries. So I got this panel. It just screws in. Normally I have the screws just in the piece of OSB that goes over there. So I'll set that there. So they're two golf cart batteries. I believe they're 240 amp hours each. If I remember correctly, let me see here. Okay, I just found the amperage. I haven't looked at these in a long time, so I honestly couldn't remember. But they're 230 amp hours each. They're 6-volt batteries, and they have a 440-minute reserve capacity, which is important for the inverter running 24/7. Now, as far as the overall capacity, since they are two 6 volts in series, which means it equates to two batteries running together to create 12 volts rather than two 6 volts paired together to create 6 volts but more amps. You actually get less amps, less amp hours, but more voltage. So sorry if I explained that a little bit badly, but yeah, so basically more voltage, less amps, more amps, less voltage. So that's how you can think of it when you think of parallel and series configurations for batteries. Okay, so there's 3 things that are connected to the battery. They aren't all connected right now, just the inverter is connected right now. So the first is the inverter. The second is the Xbox DC hookup, which is right there. I'll show you in a minute. And the third is the alligator clips for the AC to DC charger when I want to charge from shore power or from the generator. I can use the AC to DC charger to do that. So the Xbox hookup basically just consists of 2 connections for the 12 volt, one there and the other being right on the switch here so that I can turn it on and off. And then the other component of this is the 5 volt adapter. So this is a 12 volt to 5 volt cigarette lighter adapter that you would normally use in a car. And I basically just soldered the ends that go to the 12 volt portion. Sorry, I can't get very good focus here. It's hard to get focus, but anyway, so I soldered 2 wires to the leads that would normally go to the cigarette lighter to these wires that connect into this 12 volt harness here. So basically you got your 12 volt here and then an adapter to change the 12 volt that comes up here to 5 volt for the 5 volt lead on the Xbox. And then after I finish up all the other electrical here, I can show you inside what the Xbox side looks like as far as electrical. So the Xbox wires just run from the batteries just up behind there to right there. The other 2 connections go all the way up this split loom here, and they go into the power box up here. So this is where the AC to DC charger lives, as well as the solar charge controller, my fuse panel, my 2 switches for the pump and the lights and USB and speaker and stuff, and the inverter right there. So, and I also have a power bar, so I can connect the inverter or the on-grid power to that power bar, and I just get more usability out of it. Now I know this isn't the cleanest setup. It'd be a little bit tricky to explain where all the wires go and whatnot, so I'm gonna just put a schematic up right now, and you guys can check that out and use it if you want. It's free to use and replicate if you want to use it in your camper build. But yeah, that's just so you guys can get a better idea of how the electrical is laid out. I'll just give you a little bit of a video rundown of it in here. But yeah, like I said, I do need to clean this up, tidy up the wiring, and make it so that when I open this door, it's not putting so much wear on spots like that. Okay, so here's the Xbox adapter inside. You can see it's plugged into the wall as it normally would be. So it does function AC and DC. So DC when I have it in the camper, and of course AC when I have it inside. So here's the connection on the Xbox side. It's just a USB extender on one side, and then a USB cable I cut and spliced into the other side. So this would normally plug into that 12 volt to 5 volt adapter. And then these other wires here that are all taped up, you can't see them right now, but there's 2 connections, 2 prong connections that would match up with the 2 12 volt connectors. So the way this can basically work directly is Xbox is run on 12 volts. So if you look at the power supply here, sorry guys, get it focused in here. So right here, you can see it says output 12 volt at 16.5 amps. So yeah, so you can basically use any 12 volt power source as long as it puts out 16.5 amps to run an Xbox. And then the 5-volt connection, I believe that's just for the USBs on the Xbox. I'm not 100% sure, but you do need it for it to run. So anyway, yeah, that's the Xbox connection setup. Pretty straightforward, really. So here's the fridge I run. It's a MasterChef 2.7 or 3 cubic foot, can't remember exactly now, mini fridge. It does run off AC, so this is what runs my inverter 24/7. Now, these things are very low power usage. They only use about 2.8 amps an hour. So when you multiply that by 24 to get daily use, you get about 70 amp an hour. Now my battery is 240 amp hours, so even if I were to run this for a whole day consistently, assuming average power usage, it would only use about 70 amps, which is only brings my battery down to 170 amp hour, assuming it's fully charged when I start the day. Now that's one day. So of course, if you did that a couple days, it would drain eventually. But then I have solar, so I have 200 watts of solar. With 200 watts of solar, you usually can get about 1,000 watt hours a day worth of power. So that is more than enough to compensate for the loss when it's sunny, and then during the days when it's not sunny, I use my generator. And then if it's really, really bad and I can't run the generator and it's not sunny, usually it's wintertime, which means that I'm just storing my food outside anyway, so I don't have to worry about the fridge. But yeah, that's how the fridge is able to run 24/7 without any issues in here. Now, I don't have the Xbox in here right now, but a lot of people were curious as to its power usage and how I could possibly run it off DC. Now, I've gone over how it connects with the DC system in here, but I'll talk about how much power it uses and how it's possible to use in here without draining the battery. So the Xbox actually only uses about 17 amp an hour. It does run directly off DC, so there's no inverter inefficiency or anything. And the monitor I use it with uses about 10 amp an hour. So totally you're looking at about 27 amp an hour to run the Xbox for 1 hour. Or 27 amps, sorry, to run the Xbox for 1 hour. So with me only using it like an hour to maybe 2 a day, if it's really cold or rainy, then I'm only using anywhere between 27 and 52 amp. So it's really nothing for the 240 amp hour battery bank there. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you guys quick here was my plumbing system. Now, I haven't used this in a bit since it's cold here. It's below 0, so everything freezes up. I've got most of the water drained out of the tanks and all the water drained out of the pump. But I figured I'd just go under here and get a little bit of video footage of how I got everything laid out so people can check it out. And if they're curious and doing their own thing, they can see how I did it and maybe improve upon it with their own design potentially, or make it better somehow. So as you can see, it's all garden hose I've used. I think it's like a medium duty garden hose, nothing too crazy. I used just these PVC, I think they're PVC fittings. They're not garden hose fittings, but they're some kind of T fittings for my tanks. And then I also just used a joiner connection back there for that section. I had to fix something. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but anyway, all these fittings and all the hose, pump, all the valves and everything for this whole system, I'd say cost me right around probably about $150 Canadian. Now, I would say with the sink, probably about 200. I think it was around 50 for the faucet, and the sink was made out of a bowl from the dollar store, so that was nothing. But yeah, so pretty reasonable cost for an entire plumbing system. Now, this does also include my outdoor shower I put in, which is right over here. It's basically just a hose that I can pull out. I think I showed this in my first video, that I can just turn this on and it's pressurized through the pump or through the hose water coming in through the side of the camper there. Oh, which also brings me to these outlets I didn't show yet. Those are for the shore power or generator hookups when I want to run the generator, and they both go, or sorry, this orange one goes up to the power box. The white extension's just if I want to run some stuff right here. If you guys have any other questions though, be sure to post them down in the comments and I'll try and answer them as quickly as possible. And other than that, thank you for watching.